So welcome back to some more Grand Theft Auto Liberty City stories. In this part, we will be completing the Bumps and Grinds side activity, which is a requirement for 100%, and the way in which this business works over here is that you have to head on over to this dirt track area located in Harwood in Portland, and when you arrive, you'll be presented with a dirty Sanchez waiting for you, so... After interacting with such things, you'll be given a menu that shows you the courses you have available to you. Now, when you first start out, you're only going to have one course unlocked, so in order to unlock the next course, you need to beat that first course's time trial. So that's basically what this whole activity is. It's just a series of 10 courses that have time trials that you need to complete using this Sanchez. So, after beating the first course's time trial, you'll unlock the second course. And in order to unlock the third course, you need to beat the second course's time trial. So you just rinse and repeat the process until you have the 10th and final course unlocked. And at that point, when you complete the 10th course's time trial, you'll be given your percentage points for 100%, as well as a Manchez spawn in place of the normal Sanchez that you see when you arrive at this dirt track area. So I like this whole situation quite a bit. It's a lot of fun to me, and something that's really cool, super special awesome and all that, is that you don't have to do all of these courses time trials in a row. You can break them up however you'd like, or just do them all in a row if you want to, but maybe you gotta make your peas and poops, so that's okay. You can take a break if you need to and save your game and do your business. So it's fantastic stuff going on here, although I could definitely see as to why some people wouldn't like this activity, because you're forced to use a Sanchez off-road, which at times isn't the most ideal situation, because there really are a lot of bumps and grinds everywhere. You see that, but it can cause some problems for you. And combine that with the not so lenient times that you're given that you have to beat in order to complete these courses time trials, and it can make for a bit of an annoying situation, because it seems like there's a lot of instances where you can potentially miss a turn or hit a bump and then veer off-road or something, and that can cause problems for you because you really have to haul ass through these courses without doing that type of stuff, that type of mistake or whatever, to complete these things. So in doing that, you're kind of, really hurting yourself, and then you're really cutting it close at that point, and basically, if you fall off the bike completely at any point, you're pretty much screwed. I mean, maybe the more extreme and, very talented players can recover from falling off the bike, but I just don't see that happening too often here. I mean, these times, oh man, let's just say I had to do a lot of these courses a second time through, which, I suppose is okay, because I read on the wiki that you should really dedicate the first time going through these courses, assuming that you're not familiar with them, to just learning the layout of the course, learning where all the checkpoints are and trying to remember that, so when you go through the course the second time, well, I suppose at that point it's really the fourth time, because there's 3 laps to all of these courses, but, either way, the first time doing the time trial attempt, you're just getting the feel for the land, learning where all the turns are, where all the bumps can potentially be, and kind of how to apply the, acceleration and brakes and stuff, it's just basic stuff like that, so you're not really trying to haul ass, you're just trying to get a feel for where everything is. So, that's an idea for you if you're struggling. Just kind of take it slow the first or maybe even second time if you need to, and then once you get comfortable with the course, that's when you can just fly on through it like a maniac. So yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan, and that's not just because of the Cheez-Its, but, I'm a fan of driving in these 3D era Grand Theft Auto games, because there's this more arcade style to driving in comparison to the more realistic style that they go for in the HD era Grand Theft Auto games. And that's not to say that I don't enjoy driving in those games like Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5, and I know that's kind of controversial to say something positive about Grand Theft Auto 4's driving, because it seems that a lot of people don't like the driving in that game, and I can definitely see that, because the driving is like super slippery. It feels like you're driving on ice constantly, and there's just exaggerated turning movements and stuff. I mean, in its own way, it's a fun game to drive in, I think anyways, but Yeah, I think I'm the minority in that regard there, but either way though, I like this more arcade style that you see in these 3D era Grand Theft Auto games a bit more than those more realistic styles. And then you combine this arcade feel to driving with the exploitation of game mechanics that you can use when driving motorbikes in these 3D era Grand Theft Auto games, which is something I'll be saying until we're done with Vice City Stories, because that's the last game where you can do this little exploitation of game mechanics, which, really I don't know a better way of saying that. I mean, maybe there is, but it's basically where you repeatedly tap the up directional button when driving a motorbike, and then that causes, for whatever reason, you to gain this insane amount of acceleration. And it's very handy, especially in a situation like this where you have straightaways every so often, so it's great for gaining a second or two during these straightaways, which you need all the breathing room you can get when you're doing these time trials, because like I mentioned, the times aren't very lenient, so it's super awesome doing that. A bit unrealistic to be able to do that and then gain this, amount of acceleration, but it's fun. It's really, really fun. And I like that quite a bit, although you gotta watch out with it because there are a lot of hills and whatnot, so it's like if you're going too fast you might fly off the hill or whatever and then screw yourself over when it comes to completing these time trials, so you gotta watch out for that. But besides that though, it's a lot of fun doing this, and besides the whole bike aspect of what's going on here, I have to say I like this area because it wasn't really a thing in Grand Theft Auto 3. I mean, it was an area, but it was just a bunch of grassy hills with trees all around, mad bush growing everywhere as far as the eye can see. And it's like in this game, they took this relatively empty area. I mean, if you want to get pedantic with it, you can say, well, there's trees everywhere, so it's not empty, but I mean, really, there's nothing to do there. Except maybe find a hidden package, I think. I mean, I'm not even too sure about that. But overall, though, it's an empty area. So in this game, they take this area and put a dirt track here, They give this area some purpose, which, I'm not putting down having empty areas in sandbox games, because I understand that not every square inch of a map can be filled to the brim with activities to do. But at the same time, it is kind of nice to have something to do in some of these areas, because you still have your emptiness. I mean, it's kind of nice to have scenery in the background that you can explore if you want to. There's nothing there, but, it's an option for you. But it's also nice having something like this where there's a little side activity in one of these seemingly empty areas, which, I like the whole backstory to this place, too. I mean, it's not canon or anything. I guess it's more of my head canon, but something that is canon is that for the little guidebook that you get with the PSP version of this game, it kind of looks like a newspaper. And one of the articles that you see on this, fictitious newspaper is that there's a ban that's going to be enacted on motorbikes between the events of this game and the events of Grand Theft Auto 3. And it's kind of nice because, headcanon then comes into play, and you think, well, maybe since bikes were banned from the city, they just covered up this dirt track, filled it all in and kind of let the wildlife grow once again. So I don't know, I mean, maybe somebody has an idea as to why this track doesn't exist in Grand Theft Auto 3, but that ban on motorbikes, which is canon, definitely does play an effect in kind of how you think about this place. So I don't know, I like that quite a bit, that there's a bit of backstory as to why the bikes are non-existent in Grand Theft Auto 3. And I've always wondered why, if that was even an idea that came across them when they were making Grand Theft Auto 3, if they would include bikes or not, because I know bikes are existent in the game that came out after 3, and that Vice City has bikes, but I wonder if that was an idea at all ever in Grand Theft Auto 3, and maybe it just had technical limitations at the time, or maybe not even that, they just didn't know how to properly put it into the game or something, I don't know. But either way, I'm glad that they eventually put them in, and now we have all these different kinds of bikes, like the Sanchez, the PCJ, the Faggio, the Manchez. It's a lot of fun using these bikes. And I know I mentioned in this video that I'm a fan of the realistic style of driving that you have in the HD era Grand Theft Auto games, along with me liking the arcade style that you have here. It's like both of these general styles are fun in their own way to have to deal with, but there's one thing in Grand Theft Auto 4 that I can really remember, it really stands out in my mind, that I really didn't like when it came to driving. And, you know, mind you, I haven't played 4, its DLCs, and 5 in quite a good handful of years, but I just remember this being a real pain in the ass, and maybe my memory is being exaggerated because I haven't played the base game of Grand Theft Auto 4 in such a long time, but I just remember the bikes in the base game of 4 just being a real pain in the ass to use because they took forever to accelerate, and I understand that you're not going to get to 0 to 100 in the snap of your finger, but at the same time it just took a really long amount of time to get to your top speed when using a bike. And, you know, even something like the PCJ was kind of annoying to use, from what I remember anyways. And also I remember that it was fixed in The Lost and Damned, because in that game you actually play as a biker in Johnny, so it's like, you know, he knows how to handle and use a bike, and he also has some signature bikes that his, I guess, gang basically uses, so those bikes are amped up and have great handling and top speed and acceleration, and pretty much everything that you can complain about in 4 is fixed in The Lost and Damned, so they kind of expand upon that 2 and 5, where the bikes aren't as bad from what I remember. And you also have Franklin's signature ability in that he can slow down traffic when he's driving, so that makes it easier to navigate in vehicles, so you can really slice and dice your way through traffic. And I don't know, I just remember in 4 though, the base game, bikes were a real pain in the ass, and you know, it actually kind of reminds me, and has reminded me all these years, of this one legendary Pokemon in Generation 4 Pokemon games, you know, in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. And that Pokemon is Regigigas, because that Pokemon has the ability of Slow Start, which halves its attack and speed stat for the first 5 turns that it's sent out in battle. So it makes it to where it's a real pain in the ass to use. I mean, you know, it's not exactly a go-to Pokemon because of that ability, and it's just like the bikes, you know, it takes a while for it to start up as well. You know, it has that slow start, so, you know, I've always made that comparison because the Generation 4 Pokemon games came out within about 2 years of Grand Theft Auto 4's release, so I invested a lot of hours into both of those games, you know, Platinum especially, and Grand Theft Auto 4, so I've always kind of made that connection there. But anyways, going back to the time trials here, which I know we got quite a bit off course with the topics and all that, but, you know, it's like, how long can you really talk about doing these time trials and the courses and stuff? Like, I like that the courses all use the same dirt track, but just in different ways and stuff, but it's like beyond that, you can only really get reactionary if you want to fill up all of the commentary with things related to what's going on screen, but I don't know, I just find that boring in a way, you know? I know a lot of people love when a Let's Player throws up a webcam and starts screaming into it, getting super reactionary, like, oh, we got all these twists and turns, oh, we got, you know, and things like that, but it's just, yeah, that's not for me for making videos. Maybe if I were doing multiplayer videos, I would probably never use a webcam, but, you know, that would be a bit more natural to, like, scream and stuff, because I mentioned this before in videos, but it's really fun to, like, immerse yourself into a multiplayer game when you're playing with friends, specifically. You know, it's not something I do when I'm playing solo, when I'm doing multiplayer games, but it's like the whole friend aspect of it just makes it to where you want to, like, really pretend that you're on the field or doing whatever you're doing or whatever in the multiplayer game, and you're screaming, you're taking it, like, super seriously, not in the bad way, like where you're getting angry or whatever, but more so in that, you know, you're pretending that you're getting, like, shot at or whatever, like, oh, you know, get into cover and stuff, you know. I mean, it's not constantly like that. It takes a lot of energy, and, you know, these days, you know, as an old man, as an old 22-year-old man, you know, it just, I can't do it anymore these days constantly, but you get the idea though. It's a lot of fun doing that with friends in multiplayer games, but for single player, like a Grand Theft Auto game, yeah, it's like I'm not gonna do that crap there. That's just a bit much for me, and it wouldn't be natural, so that's the main thing there. But, you know, a lot of people do enjoy that, and to each their own. It's not like they're hurting anybody by, you know, liking Let's Plays like that or anything, but, you know, it's just not for me. But either way, more off-topic stuff right there. But something I wanted to mention, which is, like, perfect timing, because this is the final course for this video, and for this game, actually. This is the 10th course here. But something that's really helpful, like when you're going around turns, is to release the acceleration or gas button and just let your natural momentum carry you through a turn. And sure, you're tapping the brake button you know, if you need to slow down even more, or maybe, you know, tapping the acceleration button some more if you need a bit more speed or whatever. But you're not making those hard brakes like how you would around sharp turns, and that helps in saving time to where you're not slowing down too much to where you have to re-accelerate. And it's just something that's very handy, especially on that last course, because there's a lot of wide turns where you can do that type of, I guess, strategy, so to speak. But anyways, that completes this part in all 10 courses. Yes, we're finally done, and your reward is the Manchez as well as your percentage points. So I'm going to try to incorporate the Manchez wherever I can when I'm doing these side activities, or probably more so with the main storyline missions. So that's going to be a lot of fun using this thing. But anyways, that completes this part. In the next part, we'll be doing the drive-by challenges. So until then, I will see you next time.
Got some work to do. All right.